You're over here partly to talk about Brexit. You've made a speech and done interviews and so forth. And here you've said that Labour needs to be the unequivocal party for another referendum. Don't you feel that there are huge numbers of Labour voters who will simply feel betrayed and left behind if that happens?
Well, the evidence is actually that there are 3 times as many Labour voters who feel betrayed by the position of not having a position than there would be. But I want to make a different point. In the end, we're in this mess because each party has tried to calculate what to do about Brexit according to internal party politics. That's how David Cameron ended up in the referendum in the first place. That's why Jeremy Corbyn is sitting on the fence. The Brexit issue is now a wrecking ball at the constitution of the country, at the political structures of the country, because each of the main parties has been thinking about its own sectional interest, and the public can see it. That's how you end up with the situation that we're in.
If you were still back in your old constituency of South Shields, which voted to leave the EU, would you be going back there and saying to people, I'm terribly sorry, but you were wrong, and we have to rethink this?
I would be saying you have a democratic right to make sure that the Brexit that is now on offer, which wasn't promised 3 years ago, is available. And I want to call attention to this. I would be following the neighbouring MPs to South Shields in Sunderland, Bridget Phillipson and Julie Elliott. I'd be following Anna Turley in Redcar. I'd be following Phil Wilson in Sedgefield. Those are all MPs today representing quote-unquote Leave seats, although they would say they're Labour seats. And they have bravely said, look, because the Brexit that you were promised in 2016 is not available, because no one ever thought a no-deal Brexit was the issue, you deserve the right for democratic reasons as well as social and economic reasons to have a final say on whether we go ahead with this.
Caroline Flint's going to be sitting in that chair fairly shortly. To those Labour MPs who say don't break faith with Labour Leave voters, try and get a deal. It's still possible to get some kind of deal which will help jobs and so forth getting out of the EU. No deal will be a disaster, but also no Brexit. Simply ignoring that referendum would be a democratic outrage.
My first message to Caroline, I saw her before the programme, is one of honour. She's a friend. I respect her, and the first thing I said to her was, how's the family doing? So it's important to say that. I think my message would be this. Look, the arguments that you're making against the second referendum, that it will prolong the agony, that it will fuel the far right, that it will divide the country, those are precisely the arguments against the deals that are on offer now. Every single deal that's being promoted, either a no deal or the Theresa May deal or a version of it, that's only the beginning of the negotiations, because the difficult negotiations are still to come. The far right is already being fueled by the failure to address this in an open and honest way. And as for the Labour voters, she and I know that Labour voters are voting Labour not because of the Europe issue. They're still voting Labour because they want to know whether their jobs, their health service and the safety in their community is the key issue.
The letter, one of the 26 signatories is the Don Valley MP and former Minister Caroline Flint, who joins me now. Caroline Flint, I saw you roaring with laughter behind Mr Miliband there.
Wasn't that loud, was it?
I could see you rather than hear you. But this is a letter which sounds fairly menacing towards Jeremy Corbyn. You're saying this must happen, this must happen, this must happen. 26 names at the bottom. That's a lot of Labour MPs. Is this some kind of coded threat?
No, not a threat. I think the 26 Labour MPs who signed that letter, and many others who've privately shared their concerns with me, have been saying the same thing for a long time now. We won a situation in 2017 where we didn't win the election, but we returned better than we thought, and we did so on the promise of respecting the referendum and working to get a good deal. And those of us who signed this letter and others believe that we should respect that promise. Okay. And that is what has been Labour Party policy, and that is what is meant to have guided us through Parliament.
For those people watching who haven't read the letter yet, here is a relevant extract of it, the crucial extract. Brexit must happen, you say. The UK must leave and do so without further undue delay. A commitment to a second referendum would be toxic to our bedrock Labour voters. Now,
correct.
Correct. I suppose one of the questions out of that is: are you not likely to lose more seats to the Lib Dems than to anybody else if you don't go in the other direction?
No, not at all. I mean, when you look at the polling based on present figures, it is clear that, for example, in David's seat in South Shields that used to represent, that would go. All the seats in Sunderland, all the seats in Barnsley, across Wolverhampton, across Stoke, and many more. And those Labour Leave voters are likely to go to the Brexit party. So the danger for the party, and this isn't just about an electoral calculation.
So how many seats would Labour lose, do you think, to the Brexit party if you go ahead in the second referendum direction?
One of the polls suggests it's something like 40 plus. So the thing, and also to the Tories as well in that mix, but we would be losing in our heartland seats. And this isn't just about, electoral advantage. This actually goes to the heart of what the Labour Party is about. If we do not speak for the working class voices of Britain, then what's the point of the Labour Party?
Can I ask you a little bit more about this letter? Because 26 Labour MPs, as I said, and you say you've been speaking privately to more than 26. Is this a block of Labour MPs who would now vote for a deal if a deal comes back?
I think those people who signed the letter would like to still have the opportunity to vote on a deal. And don't forget that when Theresa May was, finally forced to stand down, we were in discussions about what the withdrawal agreement would be like and changes to the political declaration. But I think it's also about us basically trying to be heard in the Parliamentary Labour Party and elsewhere about real concerns about what our party is all about, but also the people that we speak for in our constituencies. And that hasn't been given, I think, the due respect that it deserves.
Last time round, I think only 3 Labour MPs were still voting for the Theresa May deal, of which you were one. Now that we are that much closer to a no-deal exit and a different Tory leader, do you think that number is bound to go up by a considerable margin?
I think it will go up, but, I've been to this situation many times before. I believe that the only way to stop no deal is to support a deal and for us to have an orderly Brexit. And the only way to do that is to support a deal. So I am, despite everything that's going on, I am still optimistic and hopeful that Parliament will do the job.
If I was Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt and won the Conservative leadership, an unlikely thought, the first things I would do is go to Brussels to try and get some kind of alteration or change of some kind with the withdrawal agreement. And the second thing I would go and talk to Caroline Flint and the other people who have signed that letter and say, in those circumstances, can I rely on your votes? Because if the answer is yes, then you overwhelm the relatively small number of hardcore committed Tory Remainers. And therefore the deal could finally get through and the country could avoid no deal. In order to avoid no deal, would you talk to a Johnson or a Hunt or whoever?
I would talk to anybody to stop no deal from any party. And actually, I think the underlying point in what you make, Andrew, which is correct, whoever becomes Tory leader, the truth is they need to get behind a deal. And
they need a parliamentary majority.
Yes, and they need a parliamentary majority. So whether it's Jeremy Hunt or Boris Johnson, they need to get behind a deal. I do believe, as I think Rory Stewart indicated during earlier hustings where he played a part, that essentially elements of the deal we have already got on the table, so to speak, will still be going forward. There may be some slight changes. The fact that we are having a new Prime Minister in EU language is an event, so that might open the door to some more discussions. But I think we are at a stage now that we really need to consider the health of the nation. I think the health of the nation needs us to agree a deal and move on.
So the next Prime Minister going to Brussels and thinking about trying to get a deal can, as it were, bank or at least hope for up to 26 Labour MPs in the voting lobbies when push comes to shove.
Well, I don't think anybody should bank on anything in this game that we are playing, and it is being treated by some quarters as a game which isn't helpful. But I think, yes, I think anybody who is going to be the Tory leader should think about how they reach out, not just to individuals like myself and the other 25 who signed that letter, but also, again, to the Labour Party. Because even in the Peterborough by-election, Andrew, our message in our scripts to voters, particularly those where people were thinking of voting for Brexit, was once we have Brexit, this candidate won't offer you anything on the issues of NHS, jobs and so on. That indicated to me that there is still within the party leadership an acknowledgement that actually Brexit is going to happen. And I want us to get onto those issues of the NHS and jobs, because at the moment, we're not getting a hearing on those matters either.
Similarly, reading my way through the letter and the quote that I put on the screen just now, I take it that those 26 MPs would vote against a second referendum if there's another vote on the subject in the House of Commons.
Oh, I think that is pretty clear. And because we do believe that, it's not democratic to ask Leave voters to vote twice to prove themselves, but also, look, we have to respect democracy. I think we have to bring the country together. I think out there, outside the buzz of Westminster and outside the media, there are both Leave and Remain voters who want to see progress being made. And let's get to the second stage where some of the real deals and the real negotiations will have to take place.
So this is a really big political moment, actually, because what this suggests is that it's much less likely that we have another referendum, and it is likelier that we have an agreement of some kind before we leave the EU.
I very much hope, Andrew, that is the outcome. I believe Parliament has not served the people in the way it's gone about this business over the last 1,000 days. And there have always been, as I've said, hardline Brexiteers and Remainers for whom no deal was ever going to be good enough. And
you would vote with Boris Johnson and against Jeremy Corbyn to make that happen?
I would vote for a deal that has the support of the EU 27 and a government if I felt it ticked the boxes that I voted for a deal before. And I voted twice for a deal before. But let's be clear about this. Boris Johnson has also been in the chamber voting with Jeremy Corbyn, as has Jacob Rees-Mogg, when I haven't been. So we've all been in a situation where we've been in the lobbies with Boris. The question is, why are we in the lobbies? What are we voting for? And I'm voting to leave with an orderly Brexit.
Absolutely fair point. One last question. If, right up against the end of the process, and despite everything you hope, there isn't a deal, do you vote for, do you go with no deal, a no-deal exit, or no Brexit?
I won't be voting to revoke Article 50.
So that means a no-deal Brexit, if that's what has to happen.
If that is where we end up, that is where I will be.
Caroline Flint, thanks very much indeed for talking to us today.